you know, you can't phone the police because they're not going to do anything about it. So that made me think about how we just accept things in South Africa. I'm falling more and more out of love with South Africa the longer I stay here. South Africa is not South Africa anymore. It has changed completely. It is not the, you know, the amazing place it was when I was younger. And no, I'm not referring to the blacks and apartheid. I'm referring to the days when I was 6 years old and I could play in the street until 9 o'clock at night without my parents even having to worry about what's going to happen because they know it was safe. I remember the days when I was younger where we slept with our doors and windows open. There isn't any beauty of South Africa. It's just a shithole that we live in at the moment. That's it. The natural beauty of this country can't make up for the thousands upon thousands of people that lose their lives every month because of the government letting them down, through not having enough police officers, through not educating the people enough to know that crime doesn't pay. Because what happened was her and her father was like innocently just fishing at a dam, you know, doing a Sunday thing. I don't know what day it was, but you know, they were relaxing, having fun. And then 7 men came to them and you know, basically held the father at gunpoint, and then they gang raped the girl. Now they found 5 of them, 2 are still missing, and you know, the protesters are going apeshit in front of the police station, rather, or they did, saying that these people shouldn't get bail, and if they came out they will kill them, you know. So it's a big story, but you see, this is what frustrates me. This is newsworthy. This is supposed to be on international headlines, but instead you get stuff that is ridiculously fucking significantly smaller that makes headlines across the world, like racism. Okay, now compare racism to gang rape. Okay, which one's worse and which one's more worthy of being exploited to the rest of the world to know what's really going on? Of course, you know, 5 students do something that might seem a little bit racist and it gets headlines all across the world. Yeah, innocent little 21-year-old girl is gang raped by 7 individuals, and you know, it reaches like the South African news24.com headline, and no other newspaper covered it. What the fuck? The only thing they actually covered was the protests against these people. So in the article they mentioned that so many protesters are here and they're looking at killing these people, and then they tell the story halfway through the page. It didn't even make headlines for the initial, you know, reason being that it was gang rape. It made the headlines because thousands of protesters wanted to kill those individuals. So you know, it shows you how ridiculous the news corporations are and what they air. But I mean, I'm sure all of you know that. The big thing that I've got a problem with, right, is especially in South Africa, is when they report on the news, when they report on crime, and when they report on racism, they're very quick to say the following. For instance, 4 white individuals today were caught, or you know, they say 4 white students at the University of the Free State, blah 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 blah. But as soon as a black individual does something wrong, then it's 4 men were taken into custody today, or you know, 5 students at the University of the Free State. They don't mention color when it's a black individual doing something. But as soon as a white man's racist, as soon as a white man commits a crime, then, you know, that ethnicity has to be mentioned. Why the fuck? Why don't we have equal playing fields here? You know, this is not a racist view regarding saying that only black people are responsible for crime, or only black people do things wrong. But, you know, what's good for the one is good for the other. So the news corporations in South Africa and across the world really need to fucking open their eyes, you know, and actually report news that's true. Because you can ask any South African, as soon as you turn on the 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock news and you watch it, then, you know, they never ever say whether it's a black man, but they always state whether it's a white man.
Here we are again, YouTube. Thank you for spending time with me. I want to talk with you about something heavy. So, if you're not in the mood for this, no, of course you're in the mood for this. You saw the title. When the sentence of a crime is not quickly carried out. The hearts of the people are filled with schemes to do wrong. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 11. Yes, I am an anti-theist, but I do remember most of everything that I've learned regarding the Bible. And here we go. Peace demands the disappearance of the cause of the class struggle, so that peaceful coexistence implies a worldwide classless communist society. Again, peace demands the disappearance of the cause of the class struggle, so that peaceful coexistence implies a worldwide classless communist society. That was taken from page 106 of Propaganda and Psychological Warfare, written by T.H. Qualter, Q-U-A-L-T-E-R. This individual taught at the University of Waterloo. So, when is the last time you were fooled, hoodwinked, deceived? More than likely it was done by words. Military brass, politicians, attorneys, and journalists are groups of people who are very skilled at this misuse of language. They know words can be used as weapons. The use of propaganda is both a science and an art. Words can be used to excite one group of people, to foment odium while frightening another group of people and lulling them into a false sense of security. This is the art of coercive psychological systems, spin, and propaganda. A coercive persuasion system is a program. Think of it as a software that aids a behavioral change. Apply technology to cause the learning and adoption of a set of behaviors or an ideology under certain conditions. Well, that can be said for benign social learning or ethical forms of persuasion, you say. So what is the difference? It is set apart by the conditions under which it is conducted, and by the proficiency of environmental and interpersonal manipulation used to suppress particular behaviors and to train others. It is not far-fetched to say we are constantly being exploited by the media or witnessing a purposeful absence of reporting. Shaping the proper sphere of our activities is not always an easy choice. Post-apartheid South Africa, like the riots in London, demonstrates a complexity of events. It clearly shows the erroneous assessment within the minds of people when dealing with an oppressive environment. It displays certain predictable and expected ugliness due to history. Many of us place a wall between us and them, disassociating ourselves from the lawbreakers, the troublemakers, stating, "I would never behave in that way. This is not me." Without being given an opportunity to put your foot in another's shoes, you may find yourself fabricating to ease your mind and to create social approval. Fact is, you can talk, babble, preach, and rave about what you would do in any given situation. Most times, you would not know until you are within the experience. With this said, I refuse to suffer from the silence generated by inconvenient truth, purposely avoiding an affront to feelings. I am not going to play the game of who committed greater horrors to defend my position. I'm not going to play the game of who committed greater horrors to defend my diction. Not worried about who you think I am due to genetic ties I have. Just straight talk. The media has shown that what is today's news is not news tomorrow. That it can edit at will to create what it wants you to see. Just admit it. Who's killing whom is normally addressed from the position of what is socially less offensive to our ears. While black South African criminals Notice the emphasis is on the criminals and not the entire group. While black South African criminals are not neglecting other blacks, crime depends on former social conditioning, cultural mental filters, hopes of a certain anticipated outcome, and opportunity when determining when and where to surface. However, these black criminals are overwhelmingly targeting whites and Indians. Now, like the riots, you can say, what do you expect? The seeds of this probability was planted, nurtured, and now we are watching the flourishing of what should be expected development. Really? Yes, this is valid, but it does not remove the rational egotist or responsible person from understanding this is not in our best interest. Humanity will not thrive, especially with the technological possibilities, from acceptance of this behavior. So, I want to know, does crime have a color? Odd question, you ask? When the topic of casualties of crime, both in South Africa and North America as well, surface, there is definitely a proverbial elephant in the room. Is this to be addressed if the victims can be demonized as racist? You do have to admit, we love our drama. Villains are a necessary component. They provide us with someone to empty our disgusts upon. Is this ethnocide we are witnessing in South Africa? Yes, ethnocide. ETHNOCIDE. If it is, then what makes this occurrence such, and not the evils under apartheid? I do not have the answer for this. It is a question worth asking. I encourage you to read the PDF file linked below. It addresses ethnocide. It is titled, Explaining Murderous Ethnic Cleansing. I am not endorsing the contents of this document. I do see it as a worthy read. So, again, humanity shows its penchant for defecating where it takes its meal. It's a love affair with developing and solidifying discord. How deep do we look at these murders, rapes, assaults, and destruction of property in South Africa? Will we neatly place the burden upon the Black national movement? What does this say about the cultural bias lens we use to view reality versus addressing facts and finding solutions that work for all involved? It can rationally be said that crime is South Africa's preeminent sociological problem. Next would be probably racism, and third would be unemployment. I searched for statistics to back my assertions, but found none. So take this as an educated guess. I will continue to look for documentation. I was unable to find current data, but the United Christian Action Report on murder in South Africa reveals that, according to official statistics, in the 44 years from 1950 to 1993, there was an average of 7,036 murders per year. The apartheid years of warfare, conflict, and riots are addressed under the African National Congress. An average of 24,206 murders were committed each year. If using Interpol statistics, then the murder rate, they claim, escalates during the African National Congress years to an average of 47,882 deaths per year. That's fucking ridiculous. I cannot even fathom that. Do you remember seeing the same amount of coverage for this that you have been regarding Michelle Bachmann's asinine activities? Or Paris Hilton's antics? What about Bill O'Reilly's commentary? Those that prescribe to racial superiority, groupthink, and group identity politics will have a field day contributing these behaviors to inherited characteristics in IQ debate. Listen, you can take pride in your own discipline or mental grooming, but not unearned accomplishments. That goes for the projected idea of one's group being virtuous due to the embracing of the opportune victim status, or the comparison of said group with select members of other groups which behavior was deemed dishonorable. Discipline is not a phenomenon that follows biology. Use the idea of emotions, which commonly follows thought, as a gauge to see the reciprocal relationship. I have not seen convincing evidence that concludes the apparent individual nature of man to be solely tied to biology. We may not be in control over certain environmental elements, but we can control the way we react to most stimuli. However, rhetoric will continue with something like, the environment of blacks in South Africa has nothing to do with their poor behavior. History, cultural bias, and aggression generated by philosophical leanings or dogmatic conditioning certainly is not an environmental contributor to personal decision makers. Nah, couldn't be. Instead of addressing how to amicably resolve differences, you will be smacked with accusations of spreading propaganda and avoiding challenges. Some of us rather deal with healing wounds created by hatred. Some of us rather find rational, efficient, and fair methods in dealing with the crime, or establishing viable means to prevent crime than equating virtue and acts of destruction to groups. We do not need an exorcism from using pseudoscientific arguments to support a belief structure. Like some of the recent rioters in England, some of these criminals feel justified in their behavior. Maybe they have adopted the sickness of mislabeling themselves liberators. Their actions overtly show us this is not true. They, like the rioters, provide justification for more centralized control. Their actions are deplorable. This does not change the horrors of apartheid. It only strengthens the worst in man. Politicians are consistent. They have mastered the ability to say one thing and do another. It is not different in South Africa. We hear the leadership talk of creating a prosperous, multiracial society when in fact, their actions do not support such development. Where is the police? Could it be the police are so ineffectual because the government turns a blind eye to crime? Is this a big push to get whites to flee Africa? I do not know, but something is amiss. I think most would agree that despite political agenda, current trends, or cultural bias, people who commit crimes should be punished. However, not all crimes are created equal. Murder and rape are far more reprehensible than victimless crimes. Yes, certain laws that are opposed should never be considered as a crime. They reside within the range of body autonomy. Imposing religious, personal, or moral convictions on another is not what is in question here. We are speaking of activities seen as externally projected for the sake of being injurious to another person. A person whose life is not yours to alter. It is my opinion that a great degree of what is occurring is driven by political objectives and hate. Hate that may be rooted in historical events would not overpower one if their ultimate value was peace. Therefore, it would be difficult for me to support the eye for an eye approach in its commercial display. Though I am an advocate for peace, though I am an advocate for balance, I cannot justify striking out at an individual because they are seen as symbols of my former oppression. There is no honor in traveling this road, in my mind. It is my opinion, until I have evidence to the contrary, that most of the crime committed from blacks to whites is allowed. The crime is the mask, the grand concealer, under which the militant faction within the ANC operate. I wonder what South African President Jacob Zuma would say to my comments. Why do we watch this snuff film without protest, yet we stage wars for the purpose of stealing resources? History does show that formerly oppressed groups rarely handle superficial power shifts in a balanced manner. Under supposed black rule, the frequency of black-on-white killings and rapes has increased dramatically. The ability to be destructive is proportional to opportunity presented. Where are the police? Why is Western media so inconsistent in their coverage of this ongoing famine of virtue?